Be with you guys in a minute here. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me. We're connecting in a few places. So I was going to make a please stand by sign, but I didn't get to that today. We have a number of ways that we come to you live. And I want to thank Jen for handling all that technical crap behind the scenes for us. The good news is that you are seeing us in more places, and LifePro is growing exponentially. So you may be joining me today from the VIP group. You may be joining me today from the main LifePro page. You may be joining me from one of my groups. Bear with me, I forgot to put my lights on. Today is a big topic, and I wanted to give everybody a few seconds to join me here. Technology is great when it works, right? Oh no. Well, shows that my technical skills just aren't there today. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Jen. Well, I'm going to give up on this light. Today is my first session back after being on the road. I just did a whole bunch of sessions about the Hexaplate light. For those of you that did not follow me, it was a month of seated use tips. And those are in LifePro's libraries, of course, as always. So if you'd like to check those out, I did a feature specifically on both models of the Hexaplate, simply because many of you are asking me about the plates with bumps on the surface. The reason I'm kind of dipping back to last week's session is today we're talking about little people or the little users in our life. And if you are joining me with concerns or questions about your kids using a vibration plate, I first want to break down that, you know, kids are regular people like us. General audience can be anything from little athletes to some of you that might be dealing with chronic issues or chronic conditions. So can kids use vibration plates? Yes, they can. I've done a few sessions on that. Today's going to have a little bit more of a back to school feel. And if you are in the habit of getting back into the habit of things, many of you are resuming to our back to school routines, and that includes our kids. So if you've had an active summer, What happens once we go back to school? We become very inactive in those school hours, seated at our desk at school, or seated at our desk at home, working on our schoolwork. For those of you that do not play sports, and no, video games do not count as a physical activity. Depends on the game you're playing. But my daughter and I debate this all the time. On those bad weather days, or days where we're unable to get outside, we do tend to spend more time seated. So today is part 1 of 2 sessions. Today I want to talk about ways that you can use your vibration plate as a before and after, during school thing, how it can help enhance your child's mental focus, mental clarity, help them sleep better, help them poop better. Whether you are raising an athletic child, or an inactive child, or a child with chronic symptoms that you might be managing, a vibration plate is simply a tool. It can be used for exercise. It can be used for therapy. Really depends on what your overall goals are. It is a tool. So I want to go over some basic things that aren't always covered in protocols or literature when you're reading the science-y or the medical side of this. Very often, if you were looking into vibration machine studies, believe it or not, there's probably just as much, if not more, study in the area of vibration medical grade plates with kids than any other population. And one of the biggest areas I support and have supported for quite some time is kids with special needs, in particular cerebral palsy. So I do deal with a lot of poor mobility, inability to even stand on the plate, inability to communicate, all the way up to training athletes that are using the plate as a tool to enhance their performance, expedite recovery, and God forbid, help recover if you're in an injury or a strained situation. So with your kids, if you followed any of my sessions in the past, the basics are the same. I don't necessarily cater to what your manual may outline. I've been on the front lines too long. And just like general public, I always recommend starting conservatively. And that doesn't necessarily mean on the slowest speeds. Before I get over to a few demonstration positions for today, I do want to caution you that your kids will be less fearful of your machine than many of you. There's absolutely no reason to be fearful of a machine other than your lack of understanding about it. But kids, they kind of have no fear. And for the years, the decades, I've worked with all kinds of kids on these plates. They don't have society and all these rules in their brain for as long as we do. So some of the things that are natural to us as a human body when we're moving are a little bit more forefront in the mind of a child than us. So an example of that is an injury that your body has been guarding and protecting for 20 years. Kids don't tend to have, injuries that they've been compensating for 15, 20 years yet. Fear of the plate itself, there's more of a curiosity than a fear. So if your kid is curious about your plate and you've been fearful that it's going to hurt or harm them, I assure you the worst I have ever experienced with the most severe of medical conditions is a little over exercise, which may equate to a couple more trips to the washroom. If you have over exercised on your vibration plate in general, or if you're starting out with your kids for the first time, over exercise is muscle soreness. That's typically the worst you're going to see on this. And the plate is a great tool to help recover if that's what you did do using your vibration plate. Or perhaps you're getting back into some sports at school, or you're in some athletic clubs, or you're part of some teams. A vibration plate is a great way to better prepare the body for other things, get it reconditioned, get those muscle groups refocused on the sport and the task that they need to perform for you. So I think if everyone can see and hear me, I'm going to go to the chat window and I'm going to ask, there's a few of you here joining me today. Thank you so much. If somebody can let me know if you see and hear me on the other end, I'm going to venture back into my I can't see zone and get through a few position examples for you guys today. I really want to keep the moves themselves very simple. I think the simpler and the faster you can accomplish some of these, self-care, if you want to call them, tips with your kids on the plate, the more it's going to be easily incorporated into your routine. Because we're sort of getting back into school and we're being mindful, maybe some of you have returned already, it's the perfect time to get things back in the habit and build this in a very simple format. Any issues on seeing or hearing me on the other end? I'm going to assume no. If someone could just give me a thumbs up or let me know that you are hearing me okay, I would appreciate that. And what I'll do is any questions you may have, please keep them related to today's topic. So kids using plates. If you're using one now, I'd love to hear your feedback, what model you're using, what you're using it for. I do everything. Everything is about vibration plates for me, but that doesn't mean it's the dominant in your life that it is in mine. So, if you're just using it in complement with other things, if you're using it as a therapy, I'd love to share to help other families out there that may be considering this technology, or maybe you've got a machine at home and you've been afraid to let your kid use it. If you're afraid of using a vibration machine, I would ask you, are you afraid of allowing your kid to be active or exercise? If there's medically a reason that you have to avoid traditional activities, the vibration plate is less activity in many cases than walking across the floor. And it's not always about standing on it and doing squats if you are dealing with issues and you're a chronic user. So my standard setup today, when I'm working with general population, but kids in particular, because they have a shorter attention span. So you want to have all your little bells and whistles handy. I'm starting with my traditional bar height stool. With your child, depending on the height, often you can get away with a dining room chair or their study chair because their legs are shorter. The goal when you're using a plate seated is to simply get the legs at a good 90-degree angle. Think functional. Your kid is going to be sitting in a desk for 6 to 8 hours a day for the next little while. If they've got a progressive school or a school that encourages activity, that's phenomenal, but that's not always the case. I am a homeschool mom, so I'm always looking for creative ways to get my daughter moving because a lot of our studies are online. So couple that with her gaming and her friend time, we spend a lot more time sitting than usual. So the easiest way that your kids can benefit, let's call it from movement. Let's not call it a vibration machine. It's simply movement. And what I recommend when you're starting out, because with littler bodies, the vibration, the movement itself feels different to us, our larger frames that absorb it differently than our littles. I would prefer you start thinking, instead of the markers on the plate, hip width apart. So how far apart are your child's hips? When you're doing your standing or your seated exercises, it's probably going to be on the mid or even closer together side on your plate, whatever model it is you're using. And we're going to couple that. We're using oscillating movement. Oscillating movement is the primary movement of vibration machines. It's what started it all. It's the most functional. It's the most affordable to get into. And it's also the most widely preferred. Out of 100 people, 99 or 95% will love the movement. It just feels the most natural to our bodies. Every type of movement has its place, but oscillating movement being the primary movement, and it's the movement on all of Life Pros models. Some have optional extras. All of my coaching is in that for a reason. So our feet are hip width apart, and whether maybe you're lacking time in the morning, a good way to incorporate movement seated. Just get those legs, some lymph, some circulation going. Your kids can benefit from this is maybe while they're having their breakfast, or if they're doing any schoolwork in the morning, or if maybe they watch a little TV, or whatever it is that they're doing before they go to school. Put their feet hip width apart, bring it up to a mid speed. I'm working on the Rumblex 4D Plus today, and I've got it running at about 30, 35, even 40 would be comfortable. Your kids will be very honest. If they don't like it, they will tell you. Don't think like us as adults, we think we have to suck it up and stick it out for the minute. For something like this, 1 to 2 minutes before your kid heads out the door is going to make a world of difference in waking them up if that's a problem. If there's mental clarity or focus issues, we're not going to get into all the conditions out there today because many of the conditions have similar symptoms. There's no reason that a kid can't benefit from a little lymph and circulation, oxygenation of the system before they head out the door. If you are willing. And, kids, one thing that I was sitting here thinking today, what are the big things that we see in our kids today? I'm starting to sound like my mother as opposed to when I was a kid. But lack of movement in general is one of them. Poor posture is another one. Everybody's got bad posture to a degree. It's almost when somebody's got good posture nowadays, they stand out. You notice it. They have presence. But anybody that has presence, I think, just has really awesome posture. So one of the things I love to do is bring my knees over on, or my elbows over onto my knees, and do the opposite of what your spine is doing all day with your kids are like this all day. They're texting, so are we to a degree. And you got the backpack on there. Arch the spine the opposite way. Place the elbows on the knees, and you're going to get a whole lot of additional, more direct circulation and lymph into the neck and the shoulders. Because chances are they're going to be hunched over a desk or a book or a computer at the very least in their school day. So this is a great way. If you have access to a machine, there's some schools that actually have vibration plates that I work with. This would be a great way to just, every hour or between classes to get a little bit of movement going. So for those of you that are at home, or for, if you're at home on the weekends more, incorporate a little bit more movement if you're not making up for it in other areas. If you are getting ready to get back into sports, this is, a very simple, very lazy way to just get, for the same reasons, the lymph and the circulation going, minimize injury, reduce the risk of falls, whatever it is that you're needing to improve on the motor side. If you are comfortable and wouldn't mind standing, weight bearing is always going to give you more benefit. There's nothing wrong with teaching our kids the example. The number one question I get from my adults is, how do I use my machine to improve bone density? Well, many of my kids are dealing with bone density issues nowadays, due to treatments, due to conditions, whatever it may be. Weight-bearing activity, weight-bearing positions, not a model, not a setting, not a speed. It's bearing your mass. And if you can stand, you're bearing more total body mass. If once your kid is standing, it's too aggressive or it feels too strong, modify by bringing the feet closer before you touch the speed. Trust me, bring the feet closer. You want those knees slightly bent. Kids don't like doing things like pelvic tilts because it looks silly, but maybe do some hulas, maybe just do some arm sways, just get some movement going on a more total body basis. Kids like to stand tall and make the funny voice sounds, especially the young kids. So if you're standing too tall and you can hear the movement in your voice, it's not harmful on the head, mom and dad. Don't be scared. It's just one of those things kids like to do on machines. Kids also like to stand really, really wide so they can make that voice sound louder. It's not harmful. It's what kids do. Just make sure the knees are bent, guys. And I would prefer, if you are going to play with wide feet and funny voice sounds, keep it to a minute or two. Don't use the whole preset time. It's not going to cause any issues, but I don't want you getting so wired and so hopped up that by the time you get to school or to the track, you're so wired that you have so much energy, and your coach or your teacher's going to say, hey, not so much activity before you come to school. You're too wired. I've never had that complaint technically. So one of the next things I want to talk about, if your littles have range of motion, that was to get us, woken up in the morning, maybe, we come home and we're really tired and we've got 5 hours of homework, 1 to 2 minutes of whatever kind of feels good and resonates with you is just a great way to get that lymph and that circulation going. I want to get a few more specific benefits in that are common to kids. One of the biggest ones I get is growing pains. Oh, my kids, it's always the quads or the hips or the calves. It's really, really commonly the legs, sometimes upper body. But seated, as I did, is going to give you some relief, and it's a good way to use it if those growing pain, when we're old, we call it restless leg. But when we're young, it must be growing pains. So kids have, aches and pains that keep them awake at night. Doesn't matter what they're called. That seated routine would be a really great way to just get some circulation going. Keep it moderate if you're using it before bed. I don't want to get them exhilarated and up all night and keeping you up. If you would like to do something more specific, one of the best exercises that you can do is a light squat. Not a big squat, especially if you've had a big athletic day, but because typically it does For some reason, the common one I get is the thighs, maybe other areas, but try and do positions specifically to target that area. So I'm using the thighs as an example. We want a nice straight core. We're going to bend down just a little bit, and the more you bend, the lower you'll feel the vibration suppress. I forgot my speed. We're doing all of these today in the mid-range of 30 to 40 on a Rumblex model. If you're working on a hex plate or you're on a mini where you've got 100 to 120 speeds, what is the mid-range, Debbie? Well, 50 to 60 or 60 to 70, somewhere in the middle with closer feet. And like I say, for standing exercises, same parameters of time, 1 to 2 minutes, but you're just going to get additional benefits, more total body, more weight bearing for the bones. And if we are dealing with growing pains, get into a position that targets that. So in this case, it's the thighs, it's the glutes. Perhaps you've got, more intensity on one side than the other. Shift the weight to the left side or shift it to the right, just to activate those muscles and get the blood and the circulation going in those areas a little more. One of my faves is the toe touch. So if your kid's been working on a plate for a while, most kids have better balance than us. But if you're dealing with poor balance, have something to hang on to. But for those of you that do not have poor balance, one of the biggest symptoms I see in kids, especially in that beginning elementary years, is a huge decline in flexibility. And I've talked about this in past sessions. We can't do more than this. This is what many kids today look like trying to touch their toes. Why? Because they're inactive, and in a lot of cases, they're not getting the teaching or the nagging to do simple stretching. And if you can get them into these habits now and make it a part of their before bed or before school routine, you're going to pave a lifetime of much better overall health and certainly better range of motion and stability. So a toe touch, we do lock the legs. This is one of those exceptions. And I want you just leaning forward. We're not bouncing. We're not forcing ourselves, just until you can feel that good, nice pull in the hams. If you have more range of motion, okay, it really depends on where you're at. And I just want you to hold, breathe, 2, 3. We're going to slowly roll back up. And once you get about most of the way up, just bend those knees again. Whoo, you might be a little lightheaded. 2 to 3 reps on that one. Again, we're going to lean over. As you feel it in the hips, lock those legs up. Got to do it for stability. You don't really feel the stretch if you're super flexible without locking those knees. Hold, breathe, 2, 3, slowly back up. If that scares the bejesus out of you and you don't have the stability and you're working with poor range of motion, here's a little tip. Do a quarter turn to the left or the right. Instead of turning around and having to move your chair and do all of that, sometimes it's just peace of mind to have something to hang on to. When you're standing sideways on the plate, it moves you differently. So where your heels contact the plate drives the amplitude. What is the amplitude? It's the intensity. It's the wider is more movement. Closer is less movement. That's amplitude. So starting on this one, start with your heels in the center of the plate. And you're going to feel that the toes are being lifted slightly. Try this. This is a great one for those of you that maybe are dealing with chronic issues and you're starting to do some weight bearing, but something without hanging on is a little scary. This is a great way to start. Okay. If you feel comfortable once you're down there, okay. If you want more shake, slowly walk the feet back slightly. Okay. Heels just off center. You can hear the difference in my voice too. It's pushing the heels further now. So we're getting more intensity, more amplitude. Okay. Hold, 2, 3. Okay. This is just a variation to try if the range of motion or the stability. And sometimes it's just that fear until you play around on this thing a little bit and you see how scary it's really not. So that's one way to really just get a good stretch into the back of the legs, which is super common. Another one I'd like you to try, I'll get the chair out of the way. And because we're all working with different models, big models, small models, some of the smaller models, it's hard to do certain positions on. I don't want you tipping your machine. So on a Rumblex, depending on your weight, you can hook both feet off and stretch those calves, which is my next exercise. For today, I want everybody working with the variation of 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the machine. If you have the Life Pro step, the arrow step, you could place it behind to get yourself a little bit taller up. But how you stretch one at a time is we start with both feet on the platform. Again, with your kids, start functionally, give them a week or two to get used to it. Hips hip width apart. Take one leg, hook it under the ball of the foot off the back of the platform, and lock that back leg up. Hold, 2, 3, and then I want you to keep the foot off and bend the knee forward. So we're stretching that smaller muscle in the up from the Achilles. Okay, up and then back. And yes, you should do both sides. So we're going to go 1, stretch, hold, 2, 3. We're going to bend, stretch that smaller muscle, back and up. This is a great one too for my athletes if you just need to warm up a little bit before you hit the field. A lot of your range of motion in your squats is lack of flexibility here. So these are good exercises just to incorporate into your routine, maybe a couple of reps. If you're doing this specifically in the calves or the shins are an area of concern for you, that's where you're getting the growing pains, or that's an area that you just want to target. This is, 2 to 3 reps will be a great warm up before you head out the door too. So that's another example. The last example I want to show you, again, specific to growing pain, perhaps it's injury, you're trying to recover, requires some range of motion. We're going to massage directly. So I'm not going to show you every massage move that you can do in a vibration machine, but kids love direct massage. The funny voice sounds get even louder when you're sitting on the machine. So the best way to start, and boys are different than girls in they have different parts. So if you're sensitive or you're particularly thin, it's not going to harm any parts, but you may want to add a mat to the equation just to dampen things a little bit. We're still working with a mid speed, but I think you'll find when you're doing direct massage positions where you're not physically engaging the muscles, you're just chill, you may be able to tolerate a higher speed range, especially if you've got a little more padding in the glutes and the thighs, which most of us do. They're just larger muscle groups. So because kids are shorter, you're going to be able to get more real estate on the machine. You should be able to get the glutes and the entire thigh, perhaps a little bit under the kneecaps in here. So what we would do to stretch the calves and massage at the same time is reach for the toes. So this is just a variation of the toe touch. Perhaps just being seated is another great way to relax those muscles. This is a great one a couple minutes before bed. I've done this in many of my sessions, but if you want to get a little bit more upper body while you're seated, take your hands, tuck the palms down under the top of the thighs, just under where the butt cheek kind of meets, and you're going to feel a little bit more action in the neck and the shoulders. Again, let's work on that posture piece. Try leaning forward just slightly, arching the back, come back, leaning forward. And you'll feel a stretch in the quads while you're doing it, on the back of the hamstrings, pardon me, while you're doing this. If you want to add the toes, pull those toes forward, or the calves. So right now, leaning forward, I'm feeling it in the back of my quads, the back of my calves, and I'm feeling a nice little stretch in my low back as well. This is a great one if you're getting issues with the hips, you've got some growth spurts going on, you've got pain, perhaps you are playing sports and you just want to minimize an injury and warm up those muscle groups. This is the laziest way that a kid can use a machine, same as us. So that's just 3 examples I wanted to share with you today. Other reasons that your kids may want to use a vibration plate, every reason that you guys may want to. If you're looking at doing sports performance enhancement, specific training, a vibration plate, I cannot stress enough, let's simplify things. It's just a tool that creates an environment that you do exercise or stretch positions, or you can do massage positions in. So if you're a coach or you're a training athlete and there's exercises you're supposed to be doing, maybe it's squats, maybe it's push-ups, maybe it's planks or crunches. Myself, Amber, and Roseanne have done umpteen bazillion sessions on different body parts. You're just dealing with a different body. And what I caution my kids against, because you have like these awesome metabolisms, whether you're an athlete or you're dealing with chronic issues, my kids just they put in the time and they do the work, but sometimes you overdo the work. So if you had a big training day and it was like track meet, and you don't need to come home to your whole workout. The machine can be a complement to what you're doing, but it can also be a workout tool for those days that you don't get the guidance, you're not training with the team. It's a great way to keep muscles conditioned or prepare them for the new season. It just really depends on what your training style is. The advantage of a plate is, of course, it's going to reduce the amount of time that you may have to spend doing those floor-based exercises, and all the mental health and just feel good aspects of it. When we exercise, we release endorphins. It makes us feel better. And so many people have said to me, oh, it just makes me happy. So, I don't want to get deep and dark, but if you're feeling depressed, if you're down, if you deal with anxiety, if you need to just get calm, a lot of my kids dealing with conditions find solitude and find just a grounding feeling sitting on the plates, standing on the plates. So I'm very cautious about putting time parameters. If you're doing athletic training, yes, you want to push to fatigue, and you and your trainers know what that means. But for those of you that are dealing with chronic issues, mental health issues, less is more. What I really would prefer is more of a symptom management approach, which is using it as you need it throughout the course of the day, but for less time. So if you're dealing with anxiety and this is your go-to, maybe it's 2 to 3 minutes of just doing some breathing while you're on it. And maybe, pay attention to the triggers. What are the triggers? Is it too much of a workload? There's all kinds of things that could be triggers and cause anxiety and stress. And our kids deal with it just like we do. But if the plate is offering you relief, let your body decide and drive you as far as how often, whether you're doing a squat, whether you're just sitting on it or putting your feet on it. If it gives you, some mental health gains, use it when you feel you need it. Just keep that time minimal. And that's one of the beautiful things I love about these machines. The last biggest of all side effect, and nobody ever wants to talk about it, but I always talk about it because everybody asks me about it. The biggest common side effect I see with all kinds of kids and just the people in general out there using them is a lack of or an improvement in constipation and urinary incontinence. So if that is you, if that's you, mom, or you're maybe a pediatric person and you're dealing with kids with these issues, a lot of the kids in my pediatric group spend time seated, not because they choose to, but it's just the nature of the condition that they're dealing with. They're physically unable to stand on their own in many cases. But so you spend a lot of time in that wheelchair or in that desk chair. And a vibration plate is an awesome way to move things when you have the inability to move things on your own. So if it's just for symptom relief of that, I want to caution you, if you're not going so regularly, keep it minimal. And stay hydrated and keep the electrolytes and all those other things going, because it's pretty effective within the first day or two that you will have a good clean out. If you're dealing with incontinence issues, simple things like just adding Kegels to, whatever it is that you're doing throughout your day, but certainly your time on the plate, adding Kegels, certainly while you're seated or doing squats is a great way to drive that exercise. And just, again, it's just an environment that makes whatever it is you're doing on it more effective in less time. So I hope that helps. I want to go to questions. And who's here with me? Hello, Mario. Mario says, I used Mind Vibration Plate for the first time today. I have the Mini Waver. Congratulations. Thank you for joining the club. The Mini Waver is an awesome model. There's never the perfect model for every application, but the Mini is about as small as I go personally, and what I recommend if you're doing fitness, but it's still light and portable enough that it is a good portable unit. A lot of my chronic users want to put it under their chair, their wheelchair, beside the bed. They're using it throughout the course of the day, and it's portable enough, but packs enough performance in oscillating mode. It has basically the same specs as the Rumblex models as far as frequencies. It says, felt pretty weird. I never used anything like this before. Mario, what you should do, and I'll go back after I wrap up the live. There's a ton of tutorials out there, and I've done one. I've specialized in these plates for quite some time, so the manuals are good. They're a guideline, but I've been on the front lines for so long. My approach is a little different, especially if you're dealing with chronic issues. There's just a lot of ways once you understand the plates and all of the settings, not just one of them, there's several factors you control. You can pretty much use a vibration plate for anything with the right modifications to your positions and your settings. So if you search in the group Debbie getting started, you'll see early this year I did a getting started video. I will also drop the link here for others that may be interested. But once you kind of understand how you control and manipulate the settings, you know how to adapt and set them for the exercises you're doing, your personal tolerance and your own, maybe if you're dealing with issues, things like that. I work on them. I work all the time. I was like, oh, it really vibrates pretty good even in the low setting. The low settings in the world of vibration plates and science, it's not like a treadmill. We often think instinctively to start slow, like an elliptical or a treadmill. But with the vibration plate, the slower frequencies in oscillating, different in vertical, it's not a universal thing. But the slower speeds are the destabilizing. They're the core, the yoga, the destabilizing exercise speeds. So things like planks are really great on those low speeds. What I don't like with my kids and my chronic users with the slow speeds is they can be very choppy and very wobbly. And most people don't understand or give enough credit to the foot distance. We think if we stand as wide as possible, we get more shake and we get more movement. Well, you do, but you also get the maximum impact. So if you got arthritis or you're dealing with pain or just coming from a deconditioned place, please be conservative and take my tips from today for your kids for sure. But set the example. Bring your feet about hip width apart and try with a mid speed, and you'll find it's more tolerable if you're dealing with chronic issues. But if you work out all the time, Mario, try that with a squat and load about 10 to 15 kilos on your body and just hold still. Try those mid frequencies and you'll find a faster frequency in a good position is going to fatigue you very, very quickly. Very much HIIT style training if you've got that background. And I, as a woman in my fifth decade, prefer higher intensity and short duration. And many of my users do as well. It's just a style. So who have we got else here? Mari, is it safe to use? Because I heard there's, Mari, you've actually got a lot of questions, but I wouldn't be here talking about kids using it if it wasn't safe to use. And for the record, it's not that any tool is or is not safe. It's how you use it. So LifePro spends a lot of time and effort in sending, different ways to use a plate. And the reason people struggle with a vibration plate, I think, in my opinion only, is most people aren't coming from a place of being active. So if you're an active person and you've got a background and you actually tried this plate and you still think there's something to be fearful of, you need to watch more of my information sessions. The youngest users that I currently work with are honestly as young as 2 to 3 months old, very chronic issues. I support a lot of children's hospitals and they're not doing squats on it. They're taking advantage of the circulation and the lymphatic effects that a machine can have. For you, Mario, it would be a great pre or post gym as a recovery tool. A lot of my guys aren't the best at doing their stretches and their recovery exercises. It's also a great way to expedite, fatigue. So if you kill yourself prior on your vibration machine and you try to go do your same workout at the gym, you probably won't be able to. So it's a great complement, but it's also a good replacement for those days you can't get to your regular conditioning activities or the gym. Who am I talking with now? Leslie and Terry. I've been using one I got off of Facebook Marketplace a few years ago. It's an older one that was originally used by an MS patient. Lots of research out there, and I've done a number of sessions on MS use. Dr. Terry Walls, who is a very well-known MS advocate and deals with it herself, has done a number of sessions with LifePro as well. It has helped me in many ways, especially cellulite. I had a DEXA scan recently and I am 65 and don't have any osteoarthritis anymore, just normal bone thinning. Terry, you know what? I'm going to say a big high five to you because you're doing the one thing that is the most important about anything you do with a vibration machine is using it consistently. Bone density isn't an overnight thing. And, people want these guarantees in a week that their bone density is going to, go through the roof, but it's a long-term benefit. And you only see results in that area if you're using it regularly. I'm thrilled that don't even have osteoarthritis anymore. I have been the witness in my 20 years almost of people those diagnoses just keep getting reversed. And you can give the vibration machine credit all you want. It will take it, but I'll tell you right now, it's you getting on the machine, sharing these kind of stories. If people go into the search of Life Pros pages and search DEXA, you're going to see lots and lots of claims. I see the opposite end of the scale. I do deal with a lot of children that have very deteriorated bones due to medical conditions and treatments that they take. And the vibration plate is a phenomenal tool due to its low impact ability. Thank you, Leslie. Good for you. Good for you. If you've been doing the same thing for a long time, mix it up, progress. Variety is the spice of life. Stay curious and experiment. You are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. And kids have the best imagination. And honest to God, some of my best moves have come from kids. So we've kind of gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but I hope if anything you leave today with an understanding that yes, absolutely vibration plates are safe for your children. No different than activity is appropriate, but you need to decide if you are dealing with a chronic issue or you're a conditioned athlete, what type of activity are you going to use this phenomenal tool for? There's a lot of benefits it can offer. Everything that you've heard on the good side is absolutely in many ways true. It's understanding how to use the tool in what way and consistently to our earlier point to achieve these results. Thank you, Leslie and Terry. I'm not sure which one it is. And longer isn't always it's funny you just posted that. She just said, I typically use it. I don't know if it's a she or a he or who's who, but I typically use it 15 to 20 minutes per day, 4 to 5 days a week. That's absolutely a great approach, and longer durations I certainly support for my seasoned users. But many dealing with chronic issues or fatigue issues or health issues, or maybe you're just busy and don't have the time, you can absolutely get the same benefits in 5 to 10 minutes, but you got to push yourself and be honest with yourself. Are you just going through the motions, or are you pushing yourself to fatigue? Because you can get those same gains. So if you are looking to reduce time, sometimes people enjoy the longer workout, but if you ever needed to pick things up, get her done quicker, Leslie, adding some weights. Life Pro's got a lot of great weights that they've added to their lineup. So increase your mass. Do some dynamic movement, do some different movements, but adding mass is a really great way to increase fatigue and push those muscles, pulling on those bones a little bit harder and just further the equation and get to fatigue quicker. It's the consistent use, Leslie. If Life Pro had a t-shirt that said consistent use, your name would be on the back of it. Thank you so much. And it is Leslie. If there's no other questions, Mario says, thank you so much. Mario, experiment. You're a new user, and it's not uncommon to have a little bit of fear in the back of your mind. And science, when it comes to vibration machines and other machines, there's a lot of bad rap out there about certain things. And, I always challenge anyone to certainly come have a conversation with me about why vibration machines are bad or something to be fearful of, because that is just absolutely an uninformed opinion is what I'll say, to be nice. If someone is speaking very negatively and unable to support you and offer some information so that you can look into that further, they're either trying to sell you something else or they're coming from a place of misunderstanding. So please reach out. That's what I'm here to support. If you are dealing with a pediatric child and you're looking at using this on your kid, and they're dealing with chronic issues, if you're a trained athlete, set the example, follow some of Amber's, some of Roseanne's videos for some of those body specific workouts. I think you'll be amazed at how much your performance and endurance may improve and the level of injury and recovery along with that. So it's a tool, takes a little bit of time and experimentation to perfect all the things that you can do for it. And I'm still learning something new every day. So be curious. And again, you are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. I will see you tomorrow for part 2 of this, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. Please select going or interested in the event to get event updates. And thank you so much for joining me today. If you do have questions and were unable to join us on the live today, specific to kids using vibration plates, never hesitate to tag me at Debbie with a Y. Sometimes the chatter after a while gets going and I may miss a comment, but make sure you tag me to get my attention and I'll happily get back to you on that. Thanks for joining me, everybody, today. Have a great start to your week. And for those of you that have not returned to school, all my kids out there, enjoy it. Couple weeks left. Have fun while you still got some time, guys. Have a great rest of the week.